Okay, so this is going to be a rough one because I'll tell you right now, I dug into something that I was not ready for, and I'm still not ready for. But I'm trying to get a video out a week, so we'll try it. The topic today is hair. Yeah. Um, so hair, yeah. In our current language, hair gets put on a couple different things. Of course, we have the hair on our head, which differs from the hair on our bodies. Um, we have angel hair pasta. You can have a hairline fracture, which denotes it as being small. And I don't want to split any hairs here, but when I dug into hair, I found that for the ancients, it's more than just being small. So let's look at it. Actually, I kind of started this whole thing off with viewer discretion is advised. This is a topic that the Bible handles, so we should handle it as well, though. Why shouldn't we walk around naked? And that is what hair covers. And so just to start off, scientifically, we don't live in the same culture as they did back then, and so their views differed from us, specifically scientifically. So maybe you've heard of the Hippocratic Oath, and this Hippocrates, he's the father of modern science, and so let me just tell you some of his beliefs. And he's from the ancient times and similar to the Jewish beliefs. And so what his idea was is that first of all, your reproductive fluid, its semen, starts in your head. It starts in the man in the head. And what happens is you have tubes that will connect from your head down to your reproductive part, and that will carry it once you're old enough to be able to reproduce. In order to keep those strings taut, you need two weights at the bottom, and so that will, from here down to there, is the first step. Next, you have the woman who the man implants the seed into, and the woman now has it at the bottom. In order to get it back up to her head, she needs like a suction to bring it back up, and that's what they believe hair was. So hair was these hollow things that basically like suckers on an octopus is a similar root word, but they would suck the semen back up to the female brain, and that's where it could reproduce. Okay, yeah, so just to illustrate this, one of the weird things they did in the past is they would put a scent in women's parts down low, and the next day, to see if she was fertile, they would smell her mouth, and if the tubes were working and the smell would get from there to her mouth, then they would know that the woman is fertile. And so let's get into the Bible, because that's important too. Just to illustrate that this is the view they had in the Bible, here's some ideas. Ezekiel 16:7. I've caused thee to multiply as the bud of the field, and thou hast increased and waxen great, and thou art come to excellent ornaments. Thy breasts are fashioned, going through puberty here, and thine hair is grown, and where thou was naked and bare. And so now to have hair is the symbol of being able to reproduce. Of course, you have the person of Samson, and his hair was long. And actually, let's come back to that, because one of the crux passages is in 1 Corinthians 10, or 1 Corinthians 11, verse 15. But if a woman have long hair, it is her glory to her, for her hair is given to her for a covering. And actually, so we have the long hair, that idea. Actually, the word for covering, which translators won't do this because it's just weird, but the word for covering is the same word as testicle, and so to have the female reproductive part being considered on the head as part of it, and so that's her glory. And so the man's glory being their testicle, you'd cover them both up naturally. And so for a man, then Paul goes on to say, for a man to have long hair, it's unnatural. Why is that? Because for him to have long hair means that the suction will not allow the semen to go down to his parts to reproduce. And so it's unnatural for a man to do that, because then they won't be able to have kids, and it's natural to have kids. And so Samson, dedicating himself to the Lord, has become a eunuch through letting his hair grow out. And then we see the turn from that as he goes for Delilah, in metaphor, like he is connecting with Delilah as he's not supposed to. Okay. The same idea is in Revelation. It says, 9:8, and they had hair as the hair of woman, and teeth were as the teeth of lions. And so these men, they had hair of the hair of woman. They're refusing the natural order of reproduction. And you see that throughout Genesis and the rest of the Bible. So one other thing, just because some of these things start coming alive once you understand their view of hair. Jesus' feet is anointed. The feet is a euphemism for the sexual parts of a man, and so for Mary to take her hair, which symbolizes her reproductive parts, and to put it on Jesus' feet is the most intimate act there could be. And remember, sex is a grand design, and so it's not taboo like it is today. It's really meant to be purposeful. And so other sayings of Jesus: "Shall not a hair of your head perish?" It could just be taken as, oh yeah, hair, even the smallest thing like we do in our culture, angel hair pasta. But I think it's more specific than that. So if you read in Luke 21, that's the "shall not a hair of your head perish." But if you read in Micah 1:16, "Shave your head in mourning for the children in whom you delight. Make yourself as bald as the vulture, for they will go from you in exile." So they're saying, shave your head because your children are leaving, as a symbol for all your children being gone. And so I think the idea is that each hair represented a children that you might have in the future. And so for God to say that your head shall not perish is to say that you'll have lasting generations or eternal life. You'll live forever. There's other things you can get into. Colors of hair. It talks about purple hair in Song of Solomon. Again, the sexual imagery. Red hair in other parts. Black and white hair in Proverbs, etc. Or body hair is another thing that's going into protection. Of course, we know that God gave the protective coats, animal hair. That takes us back to Genesis. But the idea is a covering or a redemption. So man is covered by the woman. That's a symbol of his redemption. Christ is the head of man, and he's left naked on a man when he gets older. You become bald. So I think, just to conclude, why shouldn't we walk around naked? And this is like one of the biggest controversial passages in the New Testament. I think it's because we don't understand this background. And Paul is saying we shouldn't be walking around naked. He says because of the angels. And that's an interesting reference, but it's very clear actually when this comes out that you shouldn't reveal your hair or your sexual parts in worship, because I think Paul is scared that another angel happening might happen. And what happened with the angels in Genesis 6? The spiritual men saw the woman and they did stuff they shouldn't have, right, with them and reproduced with them. And so the idea is for protection, to have your parts out, that's vulnerability. And same with men, when they went up the altar, they were supposed to cover their parts in Leviticus. But women are to do the same in worship, and that's why we have the hair covering. And so maybe in modern translation, you should keep your private parts covered, just because of the tendency for you to get victimized. Not so much to keep others from stumbling, but more so that you will be definitely victimized. And we can see that in Genesis when they are revealed when they have the knowledge of evil and how to hurt people, that's when they put the leaves on. And that's just smart thinking. And so maybe one day it won't be like that, but right now, in a world that is messed up, we need to have coverings. So the idea then, who holds the hair on your head, and your hair on your head is being life? It's God. And so just like Jacob, when Rachel says, "Won't you give me children?" he says, "Am I in the place of God?" Absolutely not. And so God is the one who gives us the hair on the head. He numbers every hair. And I think the idea we can take from this is that modesty is important, but even more so that God is the giver of life. And yeah, definitely. So yeah, so hopefully that was beneficial. God has your life in His hands. He numbers every hair, and I don't know, something to dwell on. There's a lot of things that weren't covered, but maybe that will just stimulate some thoughts as you read through the Bible.